Having your own home is awesome, but it's also a lot of work. The good news? Finding help for your projects is easier than ever. Introducing Angie, the app that puts all your home care needs at your fingertips. Need a pro to fix that emergency leak? Maybe find someone to build a deck, or even set your seasonal tasks on autopilot. Angie can handle all that and more. Expert pros, hundreds of home projects, clear pricing, and the easiest way to book and pay in seconds. This is Angie, your home for everything home. Download the app today.
Lose yourself in the Steakhouse Angus Thick Burger. 100% Angus beef dripping with A1 sauce makes it luxury. The Steakhouse Angus Thick Burger is back at Carl's Jr. Feed your happy. Available for limited time at participating Carl's Jr. restaurants. Price of participation may vary. A1 is a registered trademark of Kraft Foods.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. You know, when we were talking about the Palm Beach case and Judge Krista Marx, I said on the podcast that if we did some digging, I bet you we'd find some threads that would tie her to so-called polite society. And I told you at the time that I had no inside information or anything like that. I hadn't even done any research in that regard. It was just a gut feeling. Well, now today, the Miami Herald has an article out, and the article has to do with the fact that Judge Krista Marx, wouldn't you know it, has ties to polite society. Now, I was just going off of my gut because I know how things are in places like Palm Beach. It's a real buddy-buddy kind of place, and there's a haves and have-nots type of, a scenario that plays out in communities like that. And to think that she would have no ties to anyone in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit or anyone that's connected to the prosecutor's office it was just too much for me to swallow. Now, like I said, I hadn't done any research on it. I really haven't dug into it, nothing like that. So when I woke up this morning and I saw this article from the Miami Herald and Julie Brown, I shook my head. I was cracking up because it's just obvious, right? At this point, it's just obvious. When you start following this case and you start following the breadcrumbs and you start putting pieces together of this puzzle, you start to understand just how far wide this reaches, just how many players are involved. And not everybody is a key player, right? Some guys are utility players. It's just like sports. Every now and then, someone will come in and they'll pinch hit. And that's what we have in this so-called polite society and this web that connects all of these people together. And this is what I mean when I say it's all like WWE. These people are all friends in the back room. The prosecutors, the judges, the lawyers. These people don't have true animosity to one another. And they get into the courtrooms or they do these interviews and they act like, oh, well, I dislike this one or I dislike that one. In reality, we all know the game. We all know that this is a big club that none of us are ever going to be invited to. And furthermore, none of us want to be invited to it. But that's how things work when you have this kind of money. That's how things work when you have that kind of power. The threads run deep. The tentacles are everywhere. And like I said, I was just going off of a gut feeling saying, well, there has to be some ties between Judge Krista Marx and Epstein's people one way or the other. I mean, what else could predicate such a decision in this case? And it's unfortunate that I have to be like that when it comes to people in power now, but it's the only way that I roll. I am so skeptical of every single person who attains power in this country that it went from a point where I was always willing to give people the benefit of the doubt, the people in power. Maybe I was naive, but nowadays, ever since I've really dove into this case and I've been studying this case and researching this case, and I understand that it's not an R or a D thing. It's a people in power problem, folks. And just because you have a D next to your name or an R next to your name doesn't make you a good person. And it doesn't make you somebody who has the best will of the people at heart. And we need to understand that in this case, especially, there is no room for tribalism. And I know right now that's super hard, folks. I know it's hard for everybody. Everybody's at each other's throat right now. Everybody's arguing. You have families being, broken apart over what's going on in the world. And in my opinion, what I think needs to happen is we need to have less big mouths and more big ideas. Because if not, we're really on a collision course that does not look good. We should all be rallying together, all of us, because all of us, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, it doesn't matter. All of us are looked at as disposable by these people. And part of their plan is to keep us at each other's throat. Hate your neighbor. Hate the guy down the street. Whatever you do, don't focus your rage on us. And that's their tactic, and it's been their tactic forever. And they continuously use it, and we continuously take the bait. Personally, I will never, ever, 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 ever let the media gaslight me or put me into a position where I hate somebody over their opinion or about the way they think life should occur. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that's the media's job. That's what they love to do. When they're not providing cover for people like Jeffrey Epstein, they're in the middle of trying to divide the populace. And I don't know about you folks, but I'm not buying into it. I'm not playing the tribalistic game. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care what your view of how the country going forward should be. All I care about is that we're focused on justice for these survivors. That's it. After this case is over, then, everyone can go back to doing whatever they want to do, I guess. But for me personally, this case has really changed my outlook on everything. I understand for sure now that there is no way that if we're divided as a populace, that we'll ever be able to shake off the chains of these modern day slave masters, because that's really what they are. Not so much as that you're not a slave as in, you can't leave your house or anything like that. Well, nowadays, I guess you could say that. But in general, what it is more thought slavery, right? You're on the whatever the media and their handlers are pushing. Well, it's pumping it into your TV, and it's programming the people that sit in front of that TV on a regular basis. So we just got to be really careful right now, folks, what we're sucking down from the media, because I'll tell you what, they really like to muddy the waters. And you see in a case like this, especially in a case like this, all of these people these judges and these lawyers, when you start looking into them, you start finding out, oh, they're part of the same golf course, they're part of the same golf club, blah, 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 blah. And they have all of these ties that connect them, right? And it's obvious for anybody who's paying attention. All you have to do is do a deep dive and start really looking into it, and you see for yourself just exactly how deeply these people are connected. So today's article is from the Miami Herald, and the headline is, Judge in Jeffrey Epstein grand jury case has ties to those with a stake in the outcome. The author is Julie K. Brown. The Palm Beach judge, who has thus far refused to release grand jury records in the Jeffrey Epstein case, has both professional and family ties to three of the politicians who have a stake in keeping those records secret, the Miami Herald has learned. Oh, well, isn't that a shock? Nobody could have ever guessed that. Nobody would have ever guessed that Judge Marx had ties that binded her to so-called polite society, right? I mean, come on. It's obvious, folks. And you don't have to be Nostradamus to figure this out. All you have to do is take a little look around and see the players that are in the game, and you start to realize very, very quickly that there are connections with them all. Just like the Harvard judge Newsom from the 11th Circuit Court. How many classes did he take under Alan Dershowitz? Again, I haven't even looked into this stuff yet. These are just questions. All of these Harvard judges and lawyers, how many of them took classes under Alan Dershowitz? That's just one of the questions that I have. And it's one of the projects I'm going to get to at some point, I hope. But there are so many more questions than there are answers in this case that it's hard to even wrap your head around it. Circuit Court Chief Judge Krista Marx has potential conflict of interest involving three prominent players embroiled in the Epstein sex trafficking saga. Palm Beach State Attorney Dave Aronberg, who has been sued by the Palm Beach Post to release the grand jury records, Palm Beach Sheriff Rick Bradshaw, whose department's favored treatment of Epstein while he was in the Palm Beach County Jail as part of an ongoing state criminal investigation, and ex-state attorney Barry Krischer, part of the same investigation in connection with his decision not to prosecute Epstein on child sex charges. So this judge has ties to all three of these people, all three key players, and she decides that she's not going to recuse herself, that she's going to sit and hear this case anyway. See, this is what I mean. All of these judges act like their courtroom is their own private fiefdom. They don't answer to anybody. Who do they answer to? The Supreme Court of the state? The same people they're barbecuing with? There is no independent oversight, and that is a huge problem. How long have I been saying that on this podcast? And it bleeds over to things like the police force. There needs to be independent oversight. It's better for everyone, the police and the populace. Just like there needs to be independent oversight in a case like this, because if not, here's what we get. Judge Krista Marx, Barry Krischer, all these people connected. And where's the legacy media asking these questions? Besides the Miami Herald here, nobody asks these questions forever. These are the first questions I ask now. And it's not because I have some kind of a special ability to sniff things out in this case. It's just because I've been reading these articles for so long now, and I've learned how to truly read between the lines of what these people are saying and what they really mean. And when you put all of the pieces together and you have followed the breadcrumbs, you can only get to one destination. And that destination is that we are all completely and utterly screwed by the two-tier justice system and these sick people who administer it. Special prosecutors appointed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis went to court in January to unseal records of Krischer's secret 2006 state grand jury presentment in the case. Look, I'm not a huge fan of DeSantis for the most part. In fact, I'm really not, a fan. I'm not a fan of any of these politicians anymore, to tell you the truth. This case has completely soured me on all of it. But at least DeSantis is trying to get an investigation going here. Would I like to see it as an independent investigation? Yes, I would. But at least somebody's trying to unearth some answers here, so I'll give them some kudos for that. But overall, these politicians are the problem. Who do you think writes these laws? Who do you think puts these laws into place? And who do you think uses the loopholes that they put into these laws so that they can navigate this swamp while you and I get stuck in the quicksand and slowly but surely suffocate? Prosecutors wanted to examine whether Krischer's office told the panel the full scope of Epstein's crimes or whether state prosecutors kept key evidence from the grand jury. The grand jury returned a minor charge of solicitation of prostitution against Epstein, who later managed to negotiate a lenient plea deal, resulting in him serving 13 months in the Palm Beach County Jail, much of at his lavish office in West Palm Beach, thanks to a generous work release provision. Now, let me ask you folks. I'm sure a lot of you out there have friends who have made mistakes in their lives and have ended up in prison. And I'm sure most of those friends who ended up in prison, it was probably drug related or something similar. Now, were they offered house arrest? Were they offered a whole wing to hang out in by themselves? Or were they treated like anyone else who has been convicted of a crime? Why do people like Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, etc., continue to get favorable treatment even when it has been proven that they're sick, disgusting bastards, abusers, and people who assault women, but yet they still get all sorts of privileges? Meanwhile, the rest of us are literally being smashed under the boot heel of an out-of-control justice system, and nobody is standing up and saying, enough? Last year, following a series of stories in the Miami Herald detailing the machinations behind Epstein's plea deal, DeSantis ordered a state criminal probe focusing on Krischer's decision not to prosecute and on Bradshaw's role in helping Epstein maintain an opulent lifestyle, including having sex with women while subject to sheriff's custody on sex charges. Now, whoever this deputy was, or whoever the deputies were that were supposedly watching Jeffrey Epstein while he was out on this bullshit work release program, they need to be brought up as accomplices in Jeffrey Epstein's sex crimes that he committed while he was out on work release. The state should be held responsible for that. He was remanded to your custody, you let him go, you had a guard with him, and he still assaulted women. How is the state not responsible for that? If I was one of those girls who were assaulted while Epstein was supposedly out on this work release stupid-ass program, I would sue everybody. I'd sue everybody in the whole entire state. But Marx in January rejected the criminal prosecutor's effort to unseal the grand jury records, calling it a fishing expedition. Yeah, I'm sure it is. And I'm sure you know all about fishing expeditions, Judge Marx. How many of those family-style fishing expeditions have you been on with Barry Krischer? How many dinners? How many times have you clanked your glass in a toast, Judge Marx? Then on Wednesday, she rebuffed a similar request by attorneys representing the Post who sued Ehrenberg and the county clerk Sharon Bach for release of the records. Marx was dismissive of the Post's lawsuit against Ehrenberg, who has denied he has custody of the grand jury records, and Bach, who has custody of the records but won't release them without a court order. Of course you won't. It's circle the wagon time for these people. And you see it with people in power all the time. They love to circle the wagons around each other, even when they know they're wrong. Even when they know that what they're doing is completely and utterly effed up, they do not care. They circle the wagons. And there can't be any of that anymore. All right? We can't allow it. We cannot allow these people to cover for each other in the capacity that we see on a regular basis. The two-tier justice system needs to be smashed under heel and scattered into the winds of history. Marx, however, did not disclose from the bench that Krischer was her former boss, that her daughter works for Ehrenberg as an assistant state attorney, and that her son works for Bradshaw as a sheriff's deputy. There you go, folks. It wouldn't have taken much digging, right? Like I said on the podcast, that's the homework assignment. And I haven't gotten around to doing it. To digging into this part of the case. I'm working on some other things right now. But I had a gut feeling that this was the case. And if you dig into these other judges, this is the kind of shit you're going to find as well. You see what I mean when I tell you it's a scam? That it's all rigged against us from the very beginning. Never mind rigged against these survivors who were going to out these people. It's in their best interest to destroy these survivors, destroy their credibility, call them liars, ostracize them, castigate them, and make them feel like they can never come forward again. That's basically what Krischer and his Attorney General's office did down there in Florida. And it is beyond the pale. It needs to be talked about. Light needs to be shined about it. And Krischer needs to be held accountable, folks. Then you look at all this other nonsense. How her daughter works for Ehrenberg, the guy who's being sued in the case. Are you kidding me right now? And she doesn't recuse herself? I'm telling you, the more we dig, the deeper we get, the worse it all looks. And this isn't, and the thing is, this isn't like it's just a case of, every once in a while stuff like this happens. What do you think? It's just a coincidence that when you start putting the threads together in all of these major cases that all of the players are connected in one way or another, and most of those connections started at these disgusting universities like Harvard? I don't know about you folks, but I'm really, really sick and tired of the academics in this country. I am really tired of it. Besides very few of them who have come forward, like Dr. DeLay and the folks who co-signed his letter, there has been just a huge amount of silence from the academics in this world and in this case, and it's really disheartening. Mark's husband, Palm Beach County Judge Joe Marx, has a disclosure on his county webpage stating he would recuse himself from any cases that involve his two stepchildren. Krista Marx' county webpage does not have such a disclosure. Of course not, because she's a petty dictator in her little fiefdom of her courtroom. She's the chief circuit judge down there. She can do whatever she wants, she feels like. Nobody can say a word to her. There's no oversight. She can be dismissive in cases like this. She can just, do whatever she wants. Is that the kind of country that we want to live in, where somebody like this lady, who has all of these ties to the case already, has the ability to make the decisions such as these? The Miami Herald reached Krista Marx on her cell phone late Friday. She instructed a reporter to send her questions via text. Shortly after, she sent the following. A judge is prohibited from commenting on open cases. It is a clear rule of the judicial canons. See CNN 3B9. Oh, of course, and that's what they do, right? They always wrap themselves in all of these stupid laws and rules, etc., etc. Meanwhile, they don't follow any of these laws or rules themselves. They do whatever they want, whenever they want, and there are no penalties ever for these judges. There are so many activist judges on the bench that need a reality check. Neither the attorney for the Palm Beach Post nor the criminal prosecutor handling the state probe were aware of Mark's work for Krischer. Now, how is that even possible? If you're the attorney for the Palm Beach Post, isn't that one of the first things you do? Hire a private investigator and dig into who Marx is and what her connections to the case are, etc., etc.? Maybe not. Maybe that's just me being so cynical. But if I was involved in this, every single person who has something to do with this case would have to be vetted if I was the defense team. The team for the survivors. Because we're not dealing with people who are fair-minded here, folks. We're not dealing with, even-opinioned players here. We're dealing with a lot of shady characters here. A lot of shady characters. The attorneys would not comment on the record, but confirmed they didn't know that Marx, a six-term elected judge, had worked as an assistant state attorney for Krischer from 92 to 98. So Krischer was her boss for 6 years. Now she is covering Krischer's ass by not letting the grand jury documents be released. How is this not a conflict of interest? How is she not recused from this case? And who is her boss? Why don't they step in and make the decision to do so? Is anybody ever going to show any courage at all? In 2012, Marx weighed running for state attorney herself, then decided against it after supporters of Ehrenberg, the only other candidate, indicated they would file an ethics complaint against her and also run a candidate against her husband, who was up for re-election, the Post reported at the time. And you see, this is a different topic, but the inner political wheeling and dealing that goes on in situations like this, it would make your head spin if you ever did a deep dive into that, folks. That's really, one of the things that I was really focused on previous to this, the corruption within the government. And you see so much of this. There is so many cases of judges that should recuse themselves, but they don't. Judges in Palm Beach County rarely face opposition, and such re-election contests, when they do occur, are costly and time-consuming. So basically, what happens is you get one candidate, and I guess it's a fit-all process, right? Here you go, here's your candidate. We're not going to run anybody against her. You're stuck with Judge Marx. Meanwhile, she's making decisions like this, protecting pedophiles, protecting those who just completely and utterly shit the bed when they were supposed to do their job in the first case in Krischer's prosecutor's office. And meanwhile, she's pointing out that a judge can't comment on an ongoing case. Again, using the legal loopholes to provide cover for her ineptitude. That's right, Judge Marx. I am calling you inept. Right here on the podcast, you are inept, and you are everything that is wrong with the judicial system. You are the face of it. Despite his denials, Ehrenberg, who won that year and has been state attorney ever since, had a direct personal role in the events that led Marx to drop her bid, the Post found in 2012. The Miami Herald could not reach Ehrenberg for comment. The Post investigation showed that Ehrenberg's campaign manager prepared a 5-point public records request in an effort to obtain information detrimental to Marx. Ehrenberg emailed her the request himself to an associate, the paper found. The issue involves soliciting political support from practicing attorneys, the Post said. So basically, Ehrenberg was threatening to release all of this political nonsense to make Marx look bad and lose the election if she tried to run against him. They would use all of that stuff to make her husband lose his election. So what you see here is just basic, a basic knife fight between campaigns. But what it does is it builds up the story and adds context to who these people are and why they're connected and what their role is in keeping these grand jury documents secret. The records request was never filed, but Ehrenberg's campaign manager acknowledged that he drafted the request to obtain information on Marx because she was planning to challenge Ehrenberg. Both the campaign manager and Ehrenberg, however, denied knowing anything about what the Post described as a threat to damage Krista Marx's campaign. Of course, they'll hold it close to their vest. They probably still have it in their back pocket, and they're probably dog-walking Marx with it. I wouldn't be shocked. So what, we've never had a judge get blackmailed because someone has dirt on them? At the time, Marx acknowledged that she was warned by political operatives that several lawyers were preparing to file an ethics complaint against her for soliciting political support from them. So, Judge Marx here doesn't even know how to conduct herself properly, and she's going to be here and she's going to be the one telling the public and the survivors that these records aren't available for them to see? Yeah, sorry, that's not going to go over well, Judge Marx. A complaint would be filed with the Judicial Qualifications Commission and could entail an investigation and hearing that Marx supporters say would have stained her reputation even if she were exonerated, the Post wrote. Ehrenberg, a former member of the Florida Senate and a regular commentator on MSNBC, has said he doesn't have custody of the 2006 grand jury records. He is a close ally of Krischer, who served on Ehrenberg's transitional committee and has done some unspecified volunteer work in Ehrenberg's office, the Post has reported. MSNBC should just change its name to Operative TV, because between all of the CIA operatives that populate the channel to all of these type people like Ehrenberg, it is just a den of scum and villainy over there. Holy cow. A spokesman for Ehrenberg said that Krischer is not an assistant state attorney in his office, but when asked to clarify that role, if any, Krischer has had during Ehrenberg's tenure as state attorney, the spokesman did not respond. Of course not. Why are they going to respond? They know that if they respond, well, big trouble, because they'll have to answer truthfully. So they'll do what everybody else does in this case. Just avoid it. Krischer is also a paid volunteer in Bradshaw's Sheriff's Department. Public records show he has earned over $112,000 in that capacity. So in his capacity as a paid volunteer, this guy earned 112,000 boxes of ziti in that capacity. So you're telling me a paid volunteer is making six figures? Pretty lucrative work if you can get it, boys and girls. During Epstein's 2008 incarceration, the multimillionaire, pedophile, was given expansive work release privileges that are rarely, if ever, afforded to sex offenders in Florida. Bradshaw, one of the most powerful figures in Palm Beach politics, has denied he had a direct role in Epstein's treatment. Sure, nobody had a role. Epstein decided all of this on his own. I mean, that wouldn't shock me considering the amount of control he had over all of you knuckleheads. But let's be real here, okay? Bradshaw, Kircher, Villafana, Acosta, Philippe, Mukasey, all of these people played a role in this. But Epstein's case illustrates the peculiar nature of Florida politics, where behind-the-scenes power brokers and consultants fueled by money can decide who runs for office, which incumbents face challengers, and which do not, and who is rewarded with political appointments and jobs. So you just basically described every state in America, every county in America, every district in America. It's all pay for play, quid pro quo. Which bundler is going to get the most in return on his investment? And so the story goes, and so the band played on. And meanwhile, you and I sit here and we can continue to twist in the wind while our so-called leaders continue to commit just disgusting crimes brazenly right under our noses. The system is one of the good old boys have built for 20 or 30 years, and now it's in jeopardy over this case, said Jose Lambiet, a former writer for The Post who covered gossip and politics, including the Epstein scandal for many years. He also wrote a column for the Miami Herald and is now a private investigator. Marx needs to recuse herself, and anything that is done in the Epstein case should be done in a different county. Yeah, that's pretty basic stuff. And we've talked about that a lot. How is this case even being heard in Palm Beach? Move this case somewhere else. All of these people are friends. All of these people have ties that bind. And all of these people hung out with each other at these parties. What do you think? They weren't rubbing elbows at these parties where a guy like Epstein or his people are there to donate money so that they get some more support from whatever disgusting politician is on their list? Of course that occurred, folks. Of course these people all know each other. And of course Judge Marx needs to recuse herself. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, folks, I'll be back with the Daily Drop tonight. It's probably going to be a little late like usual when there's a UFC, so figure around 9:30, 10 o'clock, unless, of course, I can fit it in before UFC starts and I head out. I'll try and do that, but if not, it'll definitely be 10-ish, 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and I'll have the Daily Drop ready to go. All right, everybody, please enjoy your Saturday. If you're going out tonight, please be careful, don't drink and drive, and of course, have a great time. Until later, folks.
Es mejor llegar tarde a casa que nunca volver a llegar. Es mejor llegar tarde al trabajo que nunca volver a trabajar. Y es mejor recoger tarde a tus hijos que nunca volver a recogerlos. Llegar tarde a donde vayas por esperar a que pase el tren es mucho mejor que arriesgar tu vida tratando de ganarle el paso. Por algo existe el dicho, más vale tarde que nunca. Alto, el tren no para.
Mensaje de Nitsa.
For the health coverage you need close to home, lean on Molina Healthcare. Molina has 40 years of experience caring for people across the U.S. with access to quality care for moms, kids, and families. Molina provides preventive services, pediatric care, maternity and newborn care, transportation to medical appointments, a 24-hour nurse advice line, and more, all at no cost. For details and to find out if you qualify, go to leanonmolina.com. Get the care you need. Lean on Molina.